Hogfather by Sir Terry Pratchett is one of my favorite Christmas stories. I watch the film adaptation every year around this time. That scene we just performed is a large part of the reason why. I can't help but wonder, though, how many of you shared Susan's initial incredulity about Death's assertion regarding big lies and little ones? I think he's spot on. I've already spoiled the end of the story for you, so let me tell you how it starts. A hive mind of otherworldly, discorporeal beings known as the Auditors of Reality hire an assassin to do away with the Discworld's version of Santa Claus. Since they are described as the universe's bureaucrats, nothing is more annoying to them than humans, with all our imagination and belief making for mountains of extra paperwork. The problem for them, though, is that the Hogfather is immortal. He's originally a god of the winter solstice. So you can't really kill him. The only thing you can do is make people stop believing in him. And so using some very old magic, they try to make the children of the Discworld forget he ever existed. But the other consequence of that is because he was still associated with the winter solstice, the sun would never rise again should the Hogfather cease to exist. Now, Pratchett is engaging in some semantic trickery when he uses the word lies. What he's really saying is stories, right? I suppose it's unsurprising that a professional storyteller would argue for the value of a good narrative. What I find a bit more surprising is that an atheist penned one of my favorite Christmas tales. Now, Sir Terry wrote in an autobiographical essay that he was not necessarily anti-religion. He thought it served a necessary purpose, as I think is evidenced in that dialogue. He just happened to find his wonder elsewhere. See, it wasn't so much the content of the story that mattered to him, so much as what it did to us, through us, and for us. Being factual was secondary. So now I ask you, what stories do you tell this time of year? And what purpose do they serve? Today, as we've already mentioned, is the first Sunday of Advent when we light the candle of hope. I think hope might be one of the best examples of what Pratchett is talking about with his big lies and little lies. Not the colloquial meaning of hope, not just something we really want to happen, not something that we're relatively sure will happen, but might not. Hope is the belief that something amazing can and will come to pass, despite all evidence to the contrary. The ultimate suspension of disbelief, the refusal to submit to a narrative of a cruel and uncaring reality. Hope is the ultimate, irrational, necessary human narrative. Hope is what moves the big lies towards becoming. And it is the first candle in the Advent wreath because hope shines brightest in the darkness. It is, as the song says, frail but hard to kill. So when we despair over another mass shooting, another unjust law or aspiring autocrat, or another humanitarian crisis, hope is what spurs us to vigil, to vote, and to avail ourselves to a cause. Hope tells us change is possible, but only if we act. According to developmental psychologist Erik Erikson, our very first struggle, pre-verbal and certainly pre-rational, is whether or not we can safely have hope. For our entire childhood, we learn narratives with our bodies and our emotions, and there in our bodies is where our most fundamental truths reside for our entire lives. Our bodies are our first teachers. That's why our deepest convictions are often something we say we feel in our bones. So when we tell a child a story, we write it on their heart. Any fiction told with conviction becomes capital T truth to them. Little lies become embodied, shaping their personal narratives and causing them to pursue whatever they understand as true. What we have taught them is true. This is how a story becomes no longer just a story. But so often we adults have lost faith in the big lies behind the little ones ourselves. We feel compelled to break not so much the truth, but the facts to them. We tell them those big lies like kindness, fairness, and generosity are for the naive. Rationality and maturity become code words for cynicism, an attack on the hopeful higher truths of the body. I think we continue to tell those stories despite our cynicism because we used to have those same beliefs, those same dreams, and our deepest bodily selves want to share them. It's an act of hope. Hope that the next generation will actually live into the truths we want to see in the world. So we really need to resist the urge to call our most profound and timeless truths childish. In fact, we should stop using childish as a derogatory term entirely. Amen. Thank you. So, both to the religious among us and those who find our wonder elsewhere, whether you're waiting for Jesus or Santa Claus or the Hogfather, or neither, or both, or someone else, Advent and Christmas have that power. We can find hope in a celebration of generosity, of family, and warmth in the dead of winter. Likewise, we can celebrate the coming of a child and the promise of unity between God and humanity. Both call us in their own way to connect with our inner child, our most hopeful, incarnate selves. The villains of the Hogfather are obsessed with order and fact. They are meant to be entirely rational, and that is what makes them so very inhuman. They stand in opposition to belief. But how often are we guilty of that same kind of hubris, of thinking we are capable of operating at the level of absolute rationality, even if we were, and we aren't? It would be to our detriment, not our benefit. If we are to learn anything from the story of the Hogfather, it is that factual and truthful are not synonyms. Fact is to truth as knowledge is to understanding, a sliver of the greater whole only realized through the power of narrative, emotion, and embodiment. I so love the way that death describes humanity. We are the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape. What a great line. To be fully ourselves is to be constantly in dialogue between heaven and earth, our rational mind and our emotional, instinctual body. You know, for so much of our history, we have seen those things at odds with one another. Both Eastern and Western philosophies abound with claims about our bodies and our world being lesser or corrupt or illusory. Descartes gave us this idea of the mind-body problem, which I say is only a problem because we decided it's a problem. Now, rationality has its place, but it's not always the answer to our big questions. I'm sure we've all heard people say how religion asks us to check our brain at the doors. It's not an unfair critique, but just as many people, I think, check their body instead. I don't mean to equivocate. We've all seen the damage that thoughtless religion can do. But do you know what a disembodied religion does? Nothing. It does nothing. Absolutely nothing. The stories never become anything more than stories for them. Belief without embodiment, I would argue, is not really belief at all. At most, it is attenuated, mere mental assent to an idea, something to nod your head along and say, yes, to. We have to learn to bring our whole selves into the story, sometimes giving privilege to the body and other times to the brain, but never staying in either for too long. That's what it means to be both falling angel and rising ape. That's what it means to be incarnate, to recognize that your body and your brain, your emotions and your thoughts have never been enemies, even though they may disagree at times. It's one of those beautiful paradoxes at the center of all the world's profound truths. It's certainly at the core of the Christmas message. Since we've been talking about senses for the last few months, I would like to introduce you to another. I think that puts us at number 7. It's called interoception, and broadly, it is our conscious awareness of our internal state. This is what we learn to do through mindfulness exercises and body scans and those sorts of things you might have done in a yoga class. We learn to recognize the voice of our body. When we are fully incarnate, we can have a dialogue. Imagine for a moment you feel yourself go into fight, flight, or freeze, that visceral, innate reaction to a threat. Some part of you knows rationally this thing is innocuous, but it calls back to something that wounded us in our past. When we can interocept well, we can note it, we can accept it, we can even honor it. And then we can be gentle with our bodies. We can be gentle with that child who is scared. Maybe we breathe deeply to slow our heart rate. Maybe we put our hand on our heart and feel that warm connection. Maybe we give ourselves a hug. Maybe we tell ourselves another story. And sometimes it works in the opposite direction. The sense that something is just off. Or seemingly spontaneous tears when we have refused to grieve. Being moved to compassion at suffering or anger at injustice, those things that speak to the heart, instinct, emotion, and truth, all reside in the body, and right at the center of that Venn diagram lies hope. The history of this denomination is actually an excellent example of dialogue between embodiment and rationality. Unitarians were distinguished by their denial of the divinity of Jesus. God might exist, but man can't also be God. That makes no sense. It's the lowest of all Christologies, to use the fancy academic term. Many Universalists, on the other hand, had such a high Christology, they believed the entire world was made right through him. Two stories at odds. Truth to one, lie to the other. Head and heart, rationality, and embodied conviction. And yet, you are the result of a big lie they found to share, working towards becoming truth. This time of year, we are surrounded by stories. There will be some we don't agree with. Not one of them will be fact. I personally love Christmas, and I love it despite knowing that Jesus was not born on December the 25th, amongst other unlikelihoods. But Christmas is one of my deepest truths, and Advent is an annual lesson in hope. Every day, Christmas gets a little closer, gets a little more real. Every day, I feel it a little stronger, a blossoming warmth in my chest, even if the rest of me feels the winter chill. One night, years ago, sitting on the roof of my friend's porch, he asked me if I believed in those stories, Christmas, Easter, miracles, and all that. Now, what he was really asking was if I believed they were factual. I'll tell you now what I told him then. I honestly don't know. And I don't think it matters. Factual or not, something in it gives me hope. Something in it moves me towards truth.